I am Geoff Eido. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. How?
Oh, you didn't tell me you were going for that long.
I mean, do you want a second try?
Nah, I'm good.
So, my guest today is Andrew from Africa. Not originally, but anyway, his name's Andrew Juntenen. Did I pronounce that right?
Juntenen.
Juntenen. Andrew Juntenen.
Oh, yeah. That sounded real Finnish.
Yeah.
Actually.
Oh, good.
The ya was a bit German, but
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Juntenen.
Juntenen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew is a cliff jumping fanatic. He's also a flow state activist, which I'm excited for him to explain, and a recovering evangelical, which we're going to get into. Welcome to the program, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So first off, we should probably start off with I do definitely want to talk about flow state activism and what that means, because it's super interesting. And I want to talk about your evangelical past and upbringing, kind of the path that's led you here. But you're most famous for you fucking jumping off of cliffs. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it really blew up.
That's right. You're insta famous from the cliff jumping. So
yeah.
So I'm gonna go here on my computer, you guys. Now, I have not looked at his stuff because I was like, I want to look at it before.
Stay surprised.
I want to stay surprised. I want to give you my natural reaction to it. All right. So here we go. What am I looking for here?
We're opening up the portal here with Instagram.
Do I just type in your name?
Yeah.
Juntenen.
Andrew Jumanji is my Instagram.
Oh yeah, Andrew Jumanji.
Yeah. Jumanji's high. I got that nickname because people got tired of trying to figure out my last name.
Okay, cool. What's our favorite?
Well, if you scroll down, actually quite a ways, I did like a recap of all my best jumps from last year.
Oh, sick. Perfect.
And it's this one right there. Yeah.
It's this one. Oh, cool. So if you're looking at his page, there's one where he's got his left arm is up in the air and he's already at like an angle and he looks kind of like he's doing a Superman type thing, except like a caveman, because you look like a caveman with the hair and the beard and everything. It's good, man. I mean, it
helps.
Okay.
It helps you, sink into the role a little bit.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So that was in Sweden.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Yeah. So it's all like freestyle jumps. You know what I mean? So we're not landing on our feet.
Oh, wait. Maybe it's better without the music.
Yeah. You put the music on afterwards. Yeah, this is all from Norway and Sweden last year when I was traveling over there.
Wow.
Yeah, we were like representing the U.S. in the World Championships over there.
The World Champion cliff jump thing?
World Championship for dudsing, which is the Norwegian style of cliff diving, where you punch and kick the water at the last second and make a huge splash.
Okay.
So it's like a big spectator sport over there.
That looks really painful. It's not? Is it painful?
I mean, if you do it wrong, it's painful. But I mean, just like regular diving would be painful if you land incorrectly. But you land in what's called a shrimp usually, which is where you're like punching and kicking the water at the same time.
Okay.
And then
how high was that?
That was 85 feet. That one's in Auburn, actually.
How high was that?
That's like probably 60 something feet.
What's the highest jump that you've done?
That one in Auburn that just played is actually the highest one. Yeah. There's a funny story about that whole clip, actually.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but these are all. That one was a sketchy one. That was kind of up in Tahoe.
A little sketchy, maybe incredibly sketchy. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Who's that dumbass with you?
That's my friend Ryan Bean. He's actually one of the most like famous cliff jumpers ever.
Oh, okay,
at this
cool.
point, he's this young kid, but
amazing. So, how did you get into? I think this will probably feed in nicely to flow state activism and what that really means. But I'd love to hear, how did you get into cliff jumping? I
mean, it was kind of a combination of growing up in Northern California, because we have like all these lakes and rivers and stuff around here. So like I grew up in Shingle Springs, which is just a stone's throw away from Folsom. And there's a big jump there. It's called Big Tit by the locals.
Okay.
And it's just this big rock that's like painted white, like a nipple, basically, just like sticking out. And it's like 45 feet. And I kind of just grew up like go into that and like jumping it and like jumping off the smaller jumps there and everything. And then I was really into parkour when I was like in my late teens and early 20s.
Okay.
And so
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so that was kind of my first like extreme sport, I guess.
Was parkour or was the jumping off the nipple?
Parkour was the first like I really dedicated myself to it, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I actually owned a gym in Sacramento for a number of years.
You owned a parkour gym?
Yeah, I was 6 of my friends. 5 of my friends, I was 6.
Okay.
And so
are they all still alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they have serious injuries from parkouring?
No, most of them have families.
Wow.
At this point.
Okay, cool. They've mellowed maybe?
Yeah, some of them mellowed out. My one friend is on a professional team in LA now. He works in Hollywood and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
Doing stunts.
Doing hardcore parkour?
Doing a lot of hardcore parkour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hardcore parkour.
Yeah, we all hate that thing.
I bet you do. But really, like, I mean, that's what it is. It's pretty descriptive.
Yeah, you can't really control
what's the origin of hardcore parkour?
That's from like an episode of The Office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the funny thing with like these extreme sports things is you can't really control like how they blow up sometimes.
Yeah.
Like a clip will come out or someone will spoof it or whatever. And like, you know, like death diving actually, it really blew up. Well, it was already big through Instagram, YouTube and stuff. But like the Daily Show or someone like ripped into it and was like, hey, dumbasses, if you're going to belly flop, you're supposed to stay open the whole time. Like, you're not supposed to close at the end. They made this whole like spoof on it and everything.
Oh, that's what do you call it? You call it death diving with
death.
punching.
So death diving is like kind of how dudsing translates. Because dudsing, the literal translation is deathing. Like you're deathing the water. You know what I mean? So it's like you're playing a game of chicken with the water because you're jumping and you're in the
belly flop.
You're in a belly flop position and you're holding it as long as you can.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're doing tricks and stuff like that, and then you're coming out of the water. And so if you close early, that's kind of like you're shrimping out. You know what I mean?
Ah, okay.
But if you close really, really late, then that's good. You held your confidence as long as possible.
Yeah, you're very strong at the dutzing. Yeah.
Well, so a lot of times, like in the competitions, we'll just straight head bash the water because that's the latest close you can do, actually.
Oh, is if you just put your head in?
If you just put your hands behind your back and you just take it. But you don't want to, you don't really want to do those very much. Like I've gotten smaller concussions from doing this sport. And that's another reason why I'm taking a bit of a step back from it, because at this point I'm just like, my mind and my brain is like my most powerful tool and my most powerful gift, especially in terms of like coaching and stuff and wanting to lead people. And so I'm like, not so keen on death diving right now.
Yeah, well, I think that's good. As somebody who likes you, I feel like you're a potentially valuable member of society outside of being able to jump off of giant cliffs and
land on my face.
Land on your face.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good, man. Good. I'm glad you're taking a break.
Yeah. No, I'm filling my life up in a lot of good ways right now.
Cool.
So
nice.
Yeah, but it's been a fun chapter.
Yeah.
Sure.
Excellent. So maybe it's better if we start at the beginning of the life of Andrew Juntenen.
Oh, only there, not in the beginning with the word was the word.
I mean,
the word
we could
was God. The word was God.
Yeah, if you want to talk about, we could actually talk about that. Interestingly, I just recorded a podcast with my friend Tori Feldman, who's an ancestral healer, and she mentioned a fact to me which I did not know, which is that the vocal cords are extraordinarily similar in the way that they look to the vagina.
Oh, I've thought about this.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I was homeschooled, so I didn't have access to like a lot of like, books on sex and stuff like that. And so like, the vocal cords kind of look like the same thing.
Ah, yes. Interesting. But also, I mean, what's fascinating about that from a sort of an esoteric or a mystical or a philosophical perspective is first there was the word and the word was God, right? Yeah, and that we speak into reality, our reality. And there's more and more evidence that sound vibrations and waves, scientific evidence that that's like controlling our reality and dictating what we see and like that. So that's all super fascinating.
At least in the sense of like how like words like carry images. Mm-hmm. Like when you say a word, it like projects an image into the hearer's mind.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's a powerful way to like manifest your reality in the sense of like what you talk about, you're literally projecting that reality into people's minds.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
And we don't always know like what, if the word that I'm saying, if it's going to mean the same thing to me as it's going to mean to you. Mm-hmm. But words are just containers for the energy that we're filling them with in a sense, you know?
Absolutely.
And so it's like we're casting spells.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
our
exactly right.
Our words have power, and yet like it's not the word itself. Like the word itself is just a container for like the essence that we're like putting into it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm totally all about that. Yeah, I feel like we are all sorcerers casting spells, as you say, all the time. And I mean, also, I mean, just on a super basic kind of obvious level, like that's what separates us from monkeys is that we have actual language to talk about things and pass on knowledge and
we have a verbal language.
Yeah, we have a verbal language that explains if I tell you about the wheel and the way that it works, you'll understand what I'm saying because we share that commonality. It's also so much of our language and the way that we're brought up and taught to speak is also a huge thing that contains us and suppresses us as well and shames us. And don't say that and don't do that and don't be that way. And so it's so powerful on so many levels. And then we carry the energy of those like, you know, shame traumas or whatever, or actual traumas in our bodies. And we carry that forward into time because those words were so powerful.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by that? Like a word or a way of speaking that has suppressed and
for me personally, wow. You're digging deep, kid. You're getting into my personal. I'm gonna start crying in a second.
I mean, I'm curious because I can think of some
time
examples for myself, but I want to hear like for you.
When I was a little boy, there was an incident where my dad freaked out at somebody and I didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
I felt like it was unjust what he was saying to this person. And he had had a couple of drinks, which I didn't realize until much later. Oh, that totally affects the way that my dad was behaving because that's how drinking does it. Right.
Something you don't really realize as a kid.
No. And even as a teenager. So I'm a teenager. I'm a little rebellious. He's mouthing off to this guy who he like ran over his fishing lure on this lake that we were at. And the guy was like, hey, you owe me $20 for this fishing lure. And he's like, what? And he freaked out. And I was like, Dad, what do you like? Just relax. Like you ran over the guy's lure, like whatever. I spoke out against my father and his mother was there. And she laid into me about speaking out against my father and that I should be ashamed. And I wasn't expecting it because she had never said any harsh words. And it was sort of, in retrospect, it was symptomatic of a larger issue that she had around like, don't ever speak out against the man of the house because the man of the house in her case was abusive to her also from alcohol. So like she was kind of enforcing that paradigm, which was not part of my reality. And so then I had a lot of like shame around with my dad that like it created a big wound for me there. Like I upset this woman who's like been nothing but unconditionally loving every other time I've ever seen her. And it was around, you ought to be ashamed. And there was like, so that weight it took me a long time to untangle that and forgive that and get to the bottom compassionately of like why it was said and how that was really actually, protecting her from her own wounding of being abused in the marriage that she had with my grandfather. And like, it was like this whole web of things of really going back ancestral trauma, because who knows what happened to my grandfather that had him behave the way that he did. And this was, in the, whatever, they were married my dad was born in 1940, right? So whatever was going on in that era. So then that shame it was like a wound that I carried with me that then much later I had to really like untangle and look at. So,
around this concept of like appropriate use of language to convey your feelings basically about a situation.
That's yes, but more so that she said words to me that then impacted me and I carried with myself as a judgment on myself. I'm not allowed to fully speak my truth like that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah, totally.
Which maybe even like other, layers of like I'm still releasing on some level. Ultimately, like I love my grandma and I love my father and, they're both passed on now. And so it's like, There's no judgment against them. And really, in a larger scope, like having healed a lot of that trauma, then I recognize that as a gift now because I've gotten through it. Oh, that's so great. Because now it's so important for me to speak my truth. And I know that. And it's also important for me to empower other people to speak their truth and have their own sovereignty. And had I not had these sort of...
So it's a good thing that happened.
It's a really good thing that happened, but it's encased in the power of language. What she said to me, then I carried with me as like a wound.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Cool. Oh man. The first one that comes to my mind, actually, I'm not ready to share.
Okay.
Because it's kind of recent. But I think that maybe we could use this to segue into the Christian upbringing.
Oh yeah.
Type of thing.
Perfect.
Okay. So just to kind of recap what we're talking about like the power of language and how like our words are basically spells that we can use to like create the world around us.
And also suppress ourselves and suppress other people.
Yeah. Okay.
In this case, I'm using a negative example, obviously, of something that happened to me where it like carried forth a negative energy.
Yeah.
First of all, we should get into, just your history. And then we can also flip it around, like my wife and I manifested this house. We created this house. And actually, I created my wife. Like,
wow. Nice job, Adam.
In the sense that I wrote down.
Okay. So we're talking about writing also.
Yeah. The words.
I'm big on this.
Words.
Yeah.
So I made a list of things that like that I wanted in a partner, somebody that's like beautiful, that I'm really attracted to, that is independent, like has her shit together, so to speak, has a job, has a career of some kind, really gets what I'm about and what I'm up to, gets my sense of humor, gets my music, and is going to be like a partner with me in all of those things and help me to raise my level of integrity. And I am able to help her raise her level of integrity, her level of expression. Yeah. Somebody that has like
this is elevated quality.
Yeah. I literally wrote down like a list of these things. And then I met her. And then I did not ask her out because I thought she was a bitch. But then, yeah.
Is she going to find that out by watching this podcast?
No. She's all over it. We've talked about it. I think part of it was like, she also wasn't maybe totally in a place where she was ready for me. But anyway, something happened where she.
Totally. I mean, that's an important part of the love story. I think sometimes is you meet someone and you're not in perfect alignment then. Right. And then you can't ruin it off the bat.
That's right. It's kind of that's right. That's right. And it wasn't that like I didn't. It wasn't that I didn't like her. I did like her. We would have lunch together sometimes. We met at doing landmark events, landmark education, so cool. Forum stuff, transformational work. And so like I would see her, and I would always say hi. And she was friends with a good friend of mine, this guy Sterling, who I've interviewed on this program a couple of times. And then she mentioned something about my Instagram. I was doing a bunch of comedy stuff at the time. She was like, God, your stuff is so hilarious. Why aren't you famous? And I was like, you just checked a box for me, like on a real level. Cause I was like, I need somebody who gets my sense of humor, what I'm trying to accomplish. And she did.
And can also see like your timeline of like who you can become.
Yeah, exactly.
But like believe in you.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like a very selfish, stupid thing to say. She said, why aren't you famous? And then I was just like, oh, let's go out, which I get it. But also like, this is what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to use humor as a means of like elevating people and myself and whatever, like she got it. So then I asked her out, and then like, our relationship started to unfold, and I just started to realize, oh my God, there's so many ways that she contributes to me in my life and I contribute to her. And like, it was like, so I manifested her through my words. We manifested this house through our words. We were like, this is what we want exactly. We want 4 acres. We want like not an old house. We want a pool. If there's a pool in ground, we want a walk-in pantry. Sorry, it sounds like I'm bragging here, but please understand I moved from Los Angeles where property is extraordinarily expensive. up to the Grass Valley area where property is not nearly expensive.
Well,
and I live in the forest. used to well, rented.
Still relatively to Los Angeles, I'm sure.
Relative to Los Angeles and the Bay Area. So, but I manifested this house also through that. We manifested this house by having like a checklist. So that's like kind of the positive side.
Yeah. I'm big on writing now. I used to not be so big on writing because I had like a negative experience with journaling before, where I was journaling a lot, but then I just felt like it wasn't helping me at all. And then I started working with a mentor, doing some online reflection and stuff like that, and kind of just restructuring my inner narrative and everything. And through that process, I started changing what I was writing down. And I realized that like when you write something down, it's increasing like your ability to like remember it, basically. And so if I'm journaling about a whole bunch of shit that bothers me and like, oh, I can't stop thinking about my ex, all these reasons and stuff like that, it's like, well, now I'm just gonna be doing that more. You know what I mean? Like it's not helping at all. But if you're writing down like, you know, what your dreams and goals and desires are, and gratitude and what you're appreciative for and all these other things that are like about elevating yourself, you know. Not to say that you can't use journaling for like some shadow work and reflection, but like point it in a positive direction ultimately, because that's what you're going to recall more of. And so it's like you can like cast spells on yourself through writing.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's interesting. I've always been a journaler and a huge fan of it. And there was a long period of time where like I would just, particularly I would just write when I was depressed. And so a lot of like, I go back and look at older journals and I'm like writing about how I feel and how sad I am and how this thing that happened like really triggered me. And then I feel terrible. And then I keep writing and I keep writing. And then what I notice is like, I'm writing my way out of it. Oh, maybe this doesn't matter. And you know, what I need to do is this. And I need to like realize, oh, they're probably coming from this way, this place. I get to a more compassionate place. Like, I think if you keep writing and you're trying to understand what's going on with yourself, then it helps. It's really helpful for me to see the origin and then write my way out of it.
Yeah. Just this is like my space to be real with myself about XYZ.
Yeah. It's one of my secret tools. Not so secret.
Yeah. Now you know.
Yeah. Now you know. So great. So let's dig in. And I'm sure probably something will come up for you around this and the power of words in our discussion. But, so you grew up evangelical, and what was that like? Tell us a little bit about how that came into being, what it was like for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wasn't like fully conscious of like the fact that was like a part of my life that I was like choosing to do, you know what I mean? Until I was like, I think I was like 6 or 7 when I first had the whole like accept Jesus into my life type thing. And it was actually like a really powerful like moment. I remember it very, very clearly. Like I was with my dad and we were kind of talking about some stuff, and then I ended up being with my mom, and then I just remember like praying with my mom and like crying, and I was like 7 years old. It was like a really real experience.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Like it was I wouldn't describe it as being like any less powerful than any kind of like, you know, like psychedelic journey that I've had, or, you know, any other kind of ascendant type of experience, you know?
Sure.
Where I'm like, feel like I'm really deeply connecting to the source and creator, or whatever you want to call it. But then, you know, as you grow older, you realize like, you know, what about your beliefs and your internal narrative and everything, and how you connect to that divine presence, how much of that is within your control and how much of it has been projected onto you, and like your language of how you describe your experience starts to change and shift. I mean, I think that's just part of like becoming your own person, you know, because when you're younger, I mean, this isn't true for everyone. Some people are just like born this like independent like star, it seems, and they just like I don't know how many lifetimes they've been through or whatever. Describe to that.
I don't know.
But it sure feels like that sometimes, you know? Like, but for me, my experience, you know, was, I was homeschooled growing up. And so my social sphere was like very small,
Okay.
you know, and it was pretty much all influenced by, you know, religious circles. So like even the karate school that I studied at from when I was like 12 to 17 was like a Christian karate like academy.
Okay.
And then our Boy Scout troop was like a Christian Boy Scout troop,
Uh-huh.
you know? And like I shouldn't like shake my head at that, like looking back on it now, because they were actually like both really positive experiences, and I had like great like experiences through that. But it is a little like just funny to me looking back on it. Like I was really in a bubble growing up.
Yeah.
Like,
You were in a
like
really
big
Christian
time.
bubble.
Like all of my social like outlets were all like, you know, had this overtone of like Christianity to them.
Yeah. Do you mind if I just want to backtrack because I feel like I missed something there. First of all, you know, as we talk about Christianity and your upbringing, you know, I grew up Christian too, and I grew up in a very liberal church, and so it was like very non-exclusive, you know, and I had a really beautiful experience of that. And I had somewhat of a similar experience to what you're talking about, sitting in church, seeing light come into my hands through the stained glass, and feeling like, oh, that's God. But I'm really curious about that moment when you like found Jesus, where you really experienced Jesus, because that's so beautiful in a way. Was it like each of your folks said something to you, or like just can you just explain a little bit?
Yeah,
more
I mean, looking back on it too, I think a big part of it was just like the deep emotional connection that I had with my mom in that moment.
Okay.
You know, because like she was like very like, she kind of, I could feel, had this moment of connection with me where it was like, oh, he's really understanding this now. You know what I mean? And like, and so like of course that's going to be a really sweet moment, you know, between like a parent and their child when they're explaining some kind of spiritual concept and the kid is understanding, like, you know, like that's a really precious part of that memory for me. You know what I mean? I've had other moments with both my parents that are like, you know, maybe not on that level because I was, you know, just this little kid, you know, it was like the first time of, you know, really being in that space.
Yeah.
But like, you know, just having like moments of deep connection with a parent, you know.
Was there something particular that she said to you? Like you said, a spiritual concept that you understood. What was it? Do you remember what she said to you that was like, you were just like, oh, I get it. That's Jesus.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And yeah, I can't remember the exact words
That makes sense.
necessarily. It's somewhere in the the vocabulary of the common Christian experience, I'm sure.
Yeah. He died for our sins, kind
of
thing.
Just like, yeah, I mean, and not to be cliche or like, you know, point the finger that it's like very like a small box, but it kind of is. Like I can probably cite like 10 to 12 like key phrases off the top of my head that could summarize the entire Christian like
right.
You know. And I was in Awanas when I was a kid, which is a Bible club basically, where we would do like memorize Bible verses. We even had this thing called Bible quizzing, where we would memorize like tons of Bible verses. I'm talking like whole sections of the Bible, and we would like take written quizzes, and then we would go up on stage with buzzers, and we would actually like there would be judges they would be seated down there, and they would read off like 3 or 4 words from a Bible verse, and we would go buzz in, and then we would complete the rest of the verse and then reference it. And that was like something I did for like years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I studied the Bible, bro. So like I read like the entire thing.
Wow. So that's fascinating to me because like on the face of it, that's like, it's kind of like, are you kidding me? But then there's so many, right?
Yeah.
But then also like there's so many good things about that. I mean, you're learning to memorize things, and you're learning to like recite things. I'm just curious, like outside of the obvious, you know, that's kind of weird sort of thing. Like, were there verses that like you remember that you're like, actually that verse or that thing is really impactful for me even now?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest verses that I like look at it now and I'm just like, I don't fuck with that.
Okay.
Jeremiah 17:9, which is, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?
Wow. The heart is deceitful above all things
and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Now, I feel like, you know, reading that in the context of, the passage that it's in and everything, and also just looking at the language of the Bible overall, you can look at that and be like, okay, like they're using the heart, not in the sense that like our like conscious community in like Nevada City would say like connecting to your heart space type thing. You know what I mean? They're talking about like the flesh, but still like explain that difference to a kid who's just learning, about like, and also being raised in a society that's just like, trust your heart, follow your heart, kid. And like, all these Hollywood references, and the language again, just gets so muddled.
Yeah.
And basically I grew up, with this idea of like, I can't trust my own intuition.
Oh,
I can't trust my intuition because my intuition is going to lead me astray.
And is it tied to that particular verse, this idea?
That verse, and then also, many passages within the New Testament as well, through the Apostle Paul and everything. There's like a lot of talking about the flesh being like this thing that is going to like sabotage you and everything. And there's a lot of different ways that you can look at that in a good way too, you know what I mean? Because there are certain aspects of our humanity that, like our sexuality for sure, you know what I mean? That it's like, you can go down a rabbit hole and you can just keep getting into trouble again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah. Especially if you're not supposed to feel that way and it's shamed. And
it's like, can we be a little more nuanced with the language that we're using around, these things, instead of saying the heart is deceitful above all things,
right? Yeah.
And teaching that to our kids.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that I feel like really set me up well to learn how to connect deeply to my body, first of all, which for me, I'm very much about embodiment and about learning from my body as a teacher,
right?
And gaining a lot of reflection from that. And I mean, not to put myself, up here, but like if I was God and I was designing this game, like, damn, you can learn a lot from this thing. You know what I mean? Why would I make this a thing that's going to sabotage your ability to know the truth about life?
Yeah.
Like I would make it the main thing to tell me what the truth is about life.
Yeah.
Because it's the closest thing. It's my main teacher. It's my first layer before anyone else tells me, what's real, X, Y, and Z. I feel it.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
And so, yeah, that's been a huge like learning curve for me.
Challenge, obstacle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to me.
Reframing that.
Yeah. From a Buddhist perspective, everything is delusion. So then like, and desires are inexhaustible, I vow to put an end to them, like the Buddhist.
Yeah.
So then there's something kind of similar in that. And the monkey mind can always like deceive you. And if you follow your mind and not your heart, then you can get into a lot of trouble. And then pride is a motherfucker. Yeah. Like there's a lot of good things about that are just like about truing yourself to what you're committed to, even in your body. But I'm really seeing from your perspective, like how hard that is when it's just like, you're just demonizing the vessel. Yeah. Without any like further explanation. It's not like, oh, be careful what you think or feel, like watch yourself. It's just like, your heart is deceitful and wicked.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a good word to use to describe like the whole framing of the situation. I think is vessel. And that's something that's relevant to both like Christianity and like, how we're choosing to use it, is that our body is just the vessel for the spirit. You know what I mean? I still do resonate with that. Meaning that the spirit, meaning like, the energy of my character of who I am and like how I'm choosing to express myself through this.
Yeah.
I didn't choose this. I mean, maybe I did in a, metaphysical sense, like before birth, whatever.
Yeah. It's fun to play that.
It's fun to play that, but ultimately my parents made this.
Right.
And now I'm making this, but I don't think about doing any of it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I really control, if you can call it control, it's really just more about awareness. The only thing that I have awareness of what I'm doing is like what I'm choosing to like pull into myself in an energetic sense, and then how I'm choosing to express it. And so that for me is the spirituality, element of like the vessel,
Yeah. Beautiful.
part of the language. And so, yeah.
So back to our story, we were, cause I threw you off I didn't throw you off. I asked another question about the initial incident of you knowing Jesus. It's so beautiful to me, by the way, that like really it was like this huge moment with your mom where like you just felt the love of your mom in a way that you probably hadn't felt before, and vice versa. And you like, you guys just saw each other in this moment.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Like that makes me glad that happened, even though obviously there's some weirdness that goes along with that. So you grew up with, in that context, in a Christian, very Christian evangelical context. It sounds like there's a lot of fire and brimstone, maybe.
I kind of underline all of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like they're going to hell, I'm not.
Yeah, that type of thing. I mean, I say it in that sense of the fire and brimstone underlying everything, because that for me was the final like breakthrough for me when I just decided to like, well, what if I just don't believe in hell anymore?
Yeah.
What if I just don't? And I was just like, and I don't feel any different. Okay, I thought, you know what I mean? Like I thought that somehow, like, if I chose to like stop believing in hell, like something bad's gonna happen to me if it's true. You know what I mean? Because like usually that's like a litmus test that we use to like discern what's real. And this reality is like, oh, if I stop treating this thing like it's a real thing, and then it is a real thing, like there's gonna be a consequence. You know? Right. But it's like, and not really feeling any consequence right now. Actually, I'm feeling like this is all been something that's been pulled over my eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, like talking about a lifetime, you know what I mean? So the language that we use can change based on our experience.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
But also in the same breath, it's like all we have knowledge of right now is the present. You know what I mean? Like we can't, the past and the future is a real illusion.
Yeah.
You know? And so the whole aspect of just choosing to see like heaven or hell as like a present moment mindset, you know, it sounds very like it's a far out way of thinking or whatever, but like that's how manifestation really works, I think.
That's so beautiful. I really appreciate you for saying it that way. Cause it's like, if you think about it that way, then it's like, well, what's my reality like? Cause first of all, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I relate to it in some other ways as well. But like this idea that you're just saying, like everything is right now in the present moment. So heaven and hell are right here in the present moment. So which one am I experiencing now?
Yeah.
Like that's the question. Those are the questions that come up for me. Like, am I really deep in my victim?
Yeah.
Or my trauma that I haven't healed or thought through or figured out? Or am I like really creating who I am in this moment and being grateful for this moment and doing things that get me into more of like a flow state where I feel like I am totally present? It's a really beautiful way to look at it. Heaven and hell are right here, right now. Where are you? Yeah.
And the flow state is a big aspect of that, is just being in full acceptance, because when you're in acceptance, you're in this openness. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently, just in terms of chapters of life and everything. I really resonate a lot with just the yin yang philosophy of like there's always a little bit of light in the darkness. There's always a little bit of darkness in the light in every moment. You know what I mean? So it's like there's always something, like anytime you have something that's like really awesome, there's always something that's kind of shitty.
Yeah.
You know? And anytime there's something that's like really shitty, there's always something that's like, even if it's just you laughing at how shitty it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I got through that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that for me feels a lot more resonant with the nature of life and of this existence, rather than like, oh my God, I'm like so like completely united with Creator, or I'm like totally desolate. You know what I mean? It's like, that doesn't feel like how this game works at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It feels a lot more like I get to have a choice of like where I want to place my attention. And in certain chapters of life, it's going to be about like, you know what? Like there's this little shit that is like, you know, it's not going so well, but like I could focus on that and it could ruin this whole glorious experience for me. Or when I'm like in this really shitty chapter, I can like still find solace in this like little piece that is like still, you know, I'm feeling in unity with myself, or I'm feeling a bit of balance outside of while everything else is going to shit.
Yeah.
Know? And so that for me is like how I feel about the inner game of life right now, especially as I'm getting older, because I feel like when you're younger, like you're only focusing on like, oh, everything's like going wrong. And like everything like that.
When I'm going to be older, so I can go drink.
It's like you're in like the, can't really remember. I'm talking about yin yang, and I can't remember which one's which. Yin is the white side, right? Yang is the black side.
I think that's right.
Yeah. I'm just, because I'm like, I don't want to say that I'm halfway through it, but like I'm starting to get into the middle part of life right now, you know, the midway point.
Right.
And so I'm starting to be able to reflect back on like my mindset that I've had when I was younger.
For sure.
And I'm seeing like my tendency growing up was to like, you know, things were like mostly like hunky dory, you know what I mean? Like you're growing, your body's like pretty healthy and everything. But I was always injuring myself. I would always have something that was like, I like hurt my ankle. Oh, I can't beat 100%. Oh, I can't do this. And I was always finding something to like beat myself up about, even though in the general scheme, things were like going okay. You know what I mean? And now I'm like getting older and like shit's just hitting the fan constantly with like one thing or another. But I'm finding like a lot of like peace in an inward sense in just focusing on like what's going good, you know? And I kind of just feel like I don't want to set myself up in this sense because I would love for my life to just be glorious and awesome overall. But in a physics sense, in an entropy sense, like we're just moving towards like more chaos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Like this body's gonna
maybe
like this body's gonna break down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna have more problems than less the older that I get with this thing. You know?
Yeah.
It's just gonna degrade. And so like am I gonna continue with this mindset of like things are mostly good, but like there's this little shit that's there's always something like my fingers hurt, my ankles hurt, and I can't be my best, and like my whatever, you know? Or am I gonna like focus on like what's good? There's still something good all the time.
Right. And what are you grateful for right now? And what's there? What are you striving for? I mean, it's interesting. I'm a little bit older than you. So, and like what I find, I mean, I'm about to get surgery tomorrow. I'm getting metal out of my elbow and out of my foot from a motorcycle accident in 2012 and a one-wheel accident that I had last year. So yeah, I'm getting the metal out of my body tomorrow from an accident that I had on a one wheel and a motorcycle accident. And as I grow older, I am keenly aware of like my body and I want to keep in shape. I stretch every morning in certain ways because I do actually believe that if I take good care of my body will get stronger over time. I'm actually stronger now physically because I've been going to the gym than I ever have been. Wow. I can push more weight. You know what I mean? I look pretty good in a swimsuit, you know? And also there's a whole philosophy of like, there's this Indian population, Native American, but they're not whatever. There's an indigenous population that's in northern Mexico called the Tarahumara Indians. Yep.
That's where the Earthrunners came from.
The what?
Well, the Huarache sandals was inspired by the Tarahumara tribe.
So, right. So that their whole actual experience of life is that as they grow older, they become better runners.
Yeah.
And so when they're my age, they're actually those are the best runners. And because that's their context for reality.
Yeah.
That's their physical reality because those are the words that they speak and the way that they behave. That's their actual reality, cutting back to like the power of words. And so like I'm like people, I think historically in our society, like as we grow older, we just are convinced, that's going to start hurting and it's going to get worse and that's going to be bad and I'm going to have this arthritis.
Yeah, totally.
And then we don't embark on the healing journey that is to like, even my elbow, right? The physical therapists were like, you're never going to get beyond this point. It's never going to straighten. And then I went to and so I'm getting the metal out. My doctor's like, yeah, you'll probably get a little bit more motion. My chiropractor, is like, no, you're going to be able to straighten it all the way. Don't worry about it. We just have to work through the scar tissue. You have to be willing to do the work. Yeah. And so then all of these things that like people are just like, this is falling apart and that's falling apart. It is possible to like heal it and have a really healthy body as we grow older.
I've got a very mini version of what you have.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah. On my most important finger.
Oh, yeah.
But I almost lost that. I almost lost the tip of this finger in Guatemala. Yeah, I can relate to like the not being able. I can't make a fist all the way yet, and so I haven't done any death diving since Guatemala.
Oh.
I sacrificed and did a couple head landings for the competition with my hand all wrapped up so the water wouldn't get in on the stitches and everything. But I haven't punched the water since then. I'm almost there.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I can relate to the restriction, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a much smaller way.
Exactly. Well,
you've had yours for a while now, huh?
It's November. The accident was in November of last year.
Oh, just this past November.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of recent, actually.
The foot thing I've had for like 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, so I feel like we digressed a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
It's the embodiment of what we were talking about, really.
It really is. There's a lot of little lessons in there, I feel like. True, at least for me, too.
Especially with like the coming back around to like our bodies being our teachers.
Yeah, indeed.
I think the injuries are one of the greatest teachers of embodiment, actually.
Yeah, so that's a question that I had for you. So you had this existence growing up where you were like always there kept being injuries, and so then you were like you would get down on yourself, or you would be ashamed, right, about having those injuries because you messed up, right?
Yeah.
So if you're enjoying this program, if you love Lunacy, please consider becoming part of our team. Go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast to become a member of our team. You can choose a number of different levels to support us on a monthly basis so that we can continue the work of exploring the love operating system, how best to be of service, and how to live life to the fullest. Thank you so much for your support. Much love, everybody.
What's up?
Yeah, so
a mistake.
I wonder now that you're you're in the place now, looking back on those injuries, like, is there like a source of like you had a negative context for who you were, you felt like you needed to be ashamed, and so therefore you were injuring yourself?
Yeah, I mean, and the majority of my injuries, aside from they're all pretty much self-inflicted to some degree. I was trying to do something. I was trying to do some stunt, or I was trying to climb a tree. I actually fell up a tree and broke my back 6 years ago. Yeah. And when I say broke my back, it's not like I severed my spine. It's like I fractured one of the transverse processes on like L4, L5, which is like the upper lumbar.
Yeah.
Right where your sciatic nerve comes out. So it was like extremely painful for like a number of months.
Yeah.
But even that, I was like dicking around in a tree trying to like climb up this tree over a dry creek bed and tried to like grab this branch, and it broke and I spun and landed on my back,
Yeah.
And I've had like, I had a bike accident that was kind of similar to your situation.
Okay.
Except it was totally my fault. Actually, a deer jumped out in front of me in broad daylight.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was going like 30 miles an hour down a hill.
Oh.
And I slammed on the brakes and went over the handlebars, And that was when I was like 14.
Okay.
But that was one of my first experiences with like brake falling, like saving me from like a serious injury, because brake falling is like, how to roll out on the ground and how to like stop yourself and everything. You learn it in martial arts for judo and jiu-jitsu, like takedowns and everything. Because when you're practicing with a partner, you're putting someone in a wrist lock, or you're doing a shoulder throw or something like that. And your partner has to know how to fall in a way so that you're not like
gonna actually hurt them.
Yeah. Like if you were doing it for real on someone, you wouldn't want them to fall, while you would want them to hit their head on the ground. And
right. You're trying to fuck them up. Yeah. You're trying to defend yourself.
Yeah, but through martial arts and then later on through parkour, like I gained a lot of experience with like learning how to fall. So I should be way more messed up than I am actually.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
But learning how to interact with the ground, and this kind of feeds into like where I'm at now with my passion of.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So first of all, you're a flow state activist, which means that you are actively looking at different ways of getting into flow state using movement and our bodies, so that we can truly be present and in the moment right now, right here, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Okay, you good? That'll be $50.
Thanks for
$50,000.
I could have gone to
Actually, let's go with the $75,000.
I could have used ChatGPT for free, but I would rather come here and do a podcast.
Yeah, right.
To figure out.
ChatGPT won't charge you, and I will.
Yeah.
Just kidding, I won't. I'm not fucking charging you. All right, it's free.
Not yet. But yeah, no, that's an accurate representation for sure.
Cool. And
Yeah.
so then take me through some of the things that, because I know that you've done like a lot of hip hop dance, and actually I know that you mentioned to me that you were teaching you were taking some hip hop dancing kids out camping, I think was one of the things, which we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But so you've done a lot of different movement things, and now you're embarking on kind of creating your own offering that's related to all of those things.
Yeah, it's a blend. It's like a mutation of like a lot of different movement arts that I've studied over the past 20 years at this point, because that's when I started martial arts when I was like 30 or 12. So now I'm 32.
Okay.
I'm 32 this year.
Yeah.
And the common theme between a lot of those, aside from cliff diving, is the ground, is interacting with the ground in an intelligent way, with learning different patterns of how your body moves, so that you can transition different levels, so that you can move in ways that are safe for your joints, so you can move in ways that maximize the leverage of your body. So that's really what acrobatics is about moving in ways that are maximizing the leverage of your body so that you can do more and more complex movements.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it like impressive when you see someone moving in ways that you're like, wow, they're like making it look so easy. And it's like, well, if you take the time and you invest into studying these patterns and ways of moving, it is easy. You're conserving your energy and your momentum, and you're using it to create, a really beautiful pattern. Like, flipping, and also a lot of the movement that's in like b-boying, like breakdance, where we're doing windmills and head spins and flares and swipes, all these moves where we're cartwheeling our legs around our body and stuff. It is amazingly healthy for your body also.
Right.
When you're doing these things, you're mobilizing tissues, you're circulating into all these areas in your body, and yeah, it's tremendously healing. And it's interesting, as I've gone back through, kind of the timeline of my life over the last decade, especially where I've had a lot of my injuries. I've been like on this quest to, kind of do all these apex moves. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want to learn how to do like, double backflips into water off of cliffs. And I want to learn how to do like, flips and land on rails and stuff like that in parkour, with, getting to like these really advanced, like technical, performances of these skills. And because that's what's driving the progression of the community in a lot of these like masculine senses.
Sure.
It's a lot of dudes out there having a great time, being like, yo, you're awesome. No, bro, you're awesome.
Yeah,
like, just like amping each other up and just like doing crazier and crazier stuff.
Which is like, that's cool.
It's a fun character to play.
Yeah.
As long as you understand that it's a character.
Right.
You don't have to live in that character.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not healthy.
A really
also
important distinction.
It happened to me. It could happen for others as well, in terms of wanting to expand, the ways that we show up in the world to be beyond just this, this posturing and this kind of like alpha male type of activity.
Yeah, right.
Because for me, the depths of meaning that I've encountered through, looking back at how I've done things in the past with, just trying to really be in this high performance mind state all the time, and then getting hurt, and then being forced to basically scale back these more advanced movements, into ways of moving that are like more therapeutic. And I've had a lot of dots to connect from a few different angles regarding that, because I went to school. My bachelor's is actually in exercise physiology.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you have a background in that. That's great.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time training athletes from different backgrounds, from pre-collegiate gymnastics and tennis to track and field, and doing like speed and agility work with football players and soccer players and stuff like that. And then just personal training for like general populations as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, in sports clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on something that you said that was absolutely fascinating, because you're talking about how all these different movements where you're moving your body in a really efficient way, particularly when it comes to b-boxing,
b-boying. I try to avoid saying breakdance, because that's actually like a media term that was coined in the 80s.
Okay.
And it's not actually like, it's funny if it's kind of like, if you're in the know, you don't call it breakdance.
Okay.
Okay.
So all right.
Now you know.
whatever you want to call it. All right. B-boying. I don't know. All right.
B-boying or breaking.
Breaking. Okay,
Breaking,
cool.
yeah.
So when you're doing that, it's really healthy for your body. Somebody told me recently that's fascinating to me because somebody told me like we should get a trampoline because it's really good for your lymphatic system to be leaping up and down over and over again, which was like kind of refreshing because I'm a man child, and I want to be jumping up and down a lot.
No, trampoline is great for that. I mean, trampoline is definitely a medium that is useful for learning more advanced acrobatic maneuvers because it just you can do more reps on a trampoline than you can on flat ground. And but at the same time, like the majority of my movement that I've learned, and I'm not like a crazy high level acrobat, so I can only speak to within my range of experience on this. But the majority of my tricks I just learned into water. Like water is the original crash mat. It'll hurt if you like do something pretty gnarly from anything above like 15, 20 feet. Like you'll get smacked pretty hard. But you can practice like really basic moves that you can just come up with in your head off of 4 or 5 feet into water.
Okay.
But the trampoline, I mean, obviously has a long history in the acrobatic world of being used to like learn first the basics of how to move your body, how to sit, how to turn, how to rotate, how to land with your body, and like how to tense your muscles in the right way, stuff like that. But it's kind of a more modern invention.
Yeah.
Like acrobatics has been around for way longer than there's been trampolines.
Right.
So yeah.
So okay, great. So the goal for you is you're developing a kind of a new form, a flow state kind of that incorporates all these different methodologies that you've learned, including martial arts, including breaking. See how I did that? That was good. I'm learning. You know what I mean? It's not break dancing, it's breaking. All right.
Pretty soon you'll be learning breaking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe so. I'd be into it. My wife definitely wants to learn. So we should talk about it post podcast. And so then like, what's the goal for you?
Yeah. My goal is to really just build a community around this mindset, which has already been done in a lot of other ways. I'm not the first person to do this. Probably one of my bigger influences for this is a guy named Eido Portal. If you look into him, although it's sometimes kind of confusing to listen to him talk because he's just like so far out with like all of the different movement disciplines that he's combining together into stuff. You kind of got to like watch it for a while to see what he's talking about. The overall approach is creating a more general platform for movement as opposed to these specialized very niche movement disciplines that are kind of like gatekeeping these ways of moving in a way. So for instance, if you look at like martial arts, you have this really rich library of like different movement patterns, ways of interacting with another person's body, different ways of interacting with the ground, and like jiu-jitsu, for instance, like awesome movement art, in terms of like all the different ways that you're moving your body. Like if you looked at a jiu-jitsu like practitioner, like a match going on between two people, and you just like took you can do this kind of mentally by watching it. If you're doing this intentionally, you just watch the ways that the person's body is moving aside from just the interaction, or a dancer when they're dancing, two people dancing together. You're seeing all of these articulations and all of these, like really like neurologically complex ways of moving that is like literally just feeding your brain and like making you smarter. Okay. But it's kind of all of those patterns are kind of locked in this culture that isn't accessible to everyone because it's appealing to a certain demographic of people.
Right.
So b-boying is a really awesome example for this because where it came from gang violence.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I don't actually know the story.
So the history of b-boying, the history of hip hop in general, is it started in New York in the mid 70s. And there was just an outrageous amount of gang violence. There's tons of really awesome movies about this. Well, awesome meaning like they're kind of hard to watch a little bit because you're just like, oh my God, this is intense.
Right.
Like people were just killing each other for just like walking in the wrong part of town and stuff.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I kind of feel like not guilty, but just like, damn, I'm the one that like has this knowledge now. You know what I mean? I'm like, I have no frame of reference for what that was even like.
Right.
You know? But it's important to respect the roots of an art form, you know, to learn it. And then hip hop came into the scene. There's 4 pillars of hip hop, which is.
But so sorry, let me just ask a question. So the b-boying started because there was all this gang violence. Was it like they were just, somebody was like, hey, let's go Michael Jackson, you know?
And that's what I'm getting into. The 4 pillars are important part of the story. There's DJing, okay, which is like mixing the music. There's MCing, which is the person on the mic. That's like spoken word, and like rap came into the scene a little bit later, but they would be the person kind of guiding the scene. You know what I mean? They're announcing whatever. They're hyping up the dancers and everything. And then there's the dancing, which is like breaking, which in the beginning, breaking just encompassed everything. It was like people doing floor work and people doing like popping and locking and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then graffiti is the 4th element. So you have like, they call it writing. And so all of these elements, like the thing that they have in common actually, which is funny because we're talking about flow state. Okay. They're all flow state arts.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what created an alternative to the gang scene that was already there. Is people started having like basement parties, house parties and stuff like that. And they started having, you know, jams. They started having, getting dance crews together. And the dance crews all, you know, they had DJs and MCs and stuff like that as a part of it.
And so they could compete with that instead of shooting each other.
They were literally like, this is one of the coolest things to ever come out of the US, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is like they were literally solving disputes with dance battles.
Wow.
It was for real happening like that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And I don't know on what scale, or if there was just, you know, like, you know, it was there for sure still violence happening, you know what I mean? And b-boying is like a really competitive, like very like alpha male culture, like still to this day, like in certain scenes, the higher levels and stuff, like people still get in each other's faces and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But ultimately, and I think it's pretty special to see like the movement culture that comes out of like a struggle like that is like the movement is like so rich, like, and it's also like very indigenous. There's a lot of different cultures kind of clashing in that, you know. You have like the African American culture, you have like, you know, Latinos in there, you have the Asian culture in there, you know, and so there's a lot of diversity of people all coming together and sharing in this platform. And at the same time, like how many breakdancers do you know? Like how many, like
I know you.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not very common for people that aren't in the demographic of being like young, like already kind of predisposed athletic men to do that stuff. It's not accessible.
Right.
And it's because of it's like fast-paced hip hop music and the teaching methodologies that have been passed down through the generations, with the exception of a few like really amazing coaches that I've gotten exposed to through the internet. Like the majority of how the movement is taught is just like, oh, just keep trying it till you get it. Oh, like, yeah, when you're learning windmills and head spins, like, you know, you're going to bump your head, you're going to hurt your shoulders and stuff like that. And that's just part of the process. You know, there's not really like a nuanced way to like, hey, break it down. It's just not part of the culture.
That's so cool. So that's you're part of what you're doing.
Yeah. And so what I'm doing is I'm combining in my mind together a lot of these like harder and softer arts together, because you have contemporary dance, yoga, and then, you know, these like, which is funny, the music that is associated with each of these cultures speaks very strongly to like the attitude that's behind it, right? And then you have like parkour, and you have martial arts and like b-boy, and it's like this fast paced like drum and bass, like techno, you know, whatever, like this kind of like but every single country in the world of floor work, like I was kind of saying earlier, you know, like has something really special to bring to the table that the other is not necessarily getting, you know. So like like this really unique style of like moving like on top of the shoulders and on the neck that is like so just incredibly intelligent, like the way that b-boying has figured out how to make use of that part of the body.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have seen some of that
Yeah.
stuff that I'm just
And how
like,
they can
oh my
how they can
gosh.
spin, and like the flow state that you can drop into with that, and just the comfortability that you can have with being on the floor on that part of your body. You know what I mean? Um, I've like worked out like neck issues and stuff like that, and shoulder issues, like doing some of these patterns. You know what I mean? But in a more basic sense.
Oh, now you're definitely gonna teach my wife.
Yeah.
She's got some of that stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no better tool for learning how to mobilize and move your body than the floor. It's your original teacher of movement outside of the bodies of your parents when you're a baby.
Gravity.
It's and it's just you spend the most time with that. It's what's teaching you where your body is at. You have the most contact points.
God, this is so fascinating. You're really blowing my mind here.
Yeah.
Because I'm somebody, I love dancing. And I used to be really bad at it. You know, like I remember
Yeah.
going to like the teen dance place when I was like 16 with this kid, my friend Kent Fitzsimmons, wherever you are. I love you, buddy. And he would like teach me, he would be like, okay, just do this with your shoulders. Just, do this with your shoulders when you're like dancing. And I would do it and it would look so false and stupid. And like, but he was like, just keep dancing, you know?
Yeah.
And then at some point, somehow I found some rhythm that I had internally and I kept trying. And then I would be looking at like, oh, wow, there's a different, you know, if my feet are dancing to the beat, but my hands are dancing to the melody and different things, then there's a really different way that I can like interact with the music so that so that it creates a flow state. And then once I'm in a flow state, then I don't look like an idiot automatically because I'm in the flow state.
Not looking like an idiot is an important part of the flow state alchemy.
It really is.
Because there's a balance that has to be there in order for you to feel stimulated.
Yeah.
There has to be novelty, right? But there also has to be a sense of competency.
Yeah.
And that is, what people are looking for just in life. They're trying to find their niche. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is good. This is great. So now we're getting into how it relates metaphorically to just regular everyday life and how it is life itself, because you're doing something that is very physical and very obvious and very here and now and in the moment. That's why ecstatic dance is so cool. That's why just dancing in general is so cool. But also, like you mentioned, like having a state of like acceptance is kind of one of the key tenets of your work. For me, and I'm sure you're going to be like, yeah, same thing. Like with my work in music and certainly comedy and certainly music and certainly comedy and certainly podcasting and certainly friend making and love making, etc. Love making,
etc.
But really, in terms of those, like I spend, I guess, most of my time doing music, this or some sort of comedic type stuff. And so with all those, the key thing for me is permission.
Permission from yourself or the environment or both?
Yes,
or how does that...
permission to fail.
Okay,
I give myself permission to fail. Recognizing that failure is a step towards success. Yeah. Recognizing that like it's critically important for me to just be like, okay, I'm just figuring this out. That's also the same with writing as well. Like I wrote a screenplay. Well, when I was writing the screenplay, above my keyboard, I had written two things. You always have the last draft. Permission to fail. Permission granted.
Yeah.
And I think something that allows me to accelerate and grow in those arts is the permission to fail, to just try something that's like out and that's like maybe not normal, particularly with music, like you can just, hey, go to a different place. I wrote a song recently that's in 2 different time signatures. Like it alternates between 4/4 and 3/4, and so like, and it works. It works in the song. And it makes sense from what the song is about. It's a very like,
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well, I'll play it for you at some point when it's more complete, but yeah, I think also like part of like what, and maybe we could talk about some of that philosophy too, because you mentioned acceptance is something that's so key. I think permission is something that's so key, and they're very related. You know what I mean? It's like saying, okay, I'm just going to step outside of the world of judgment here, and just allow myself to be how I'm going to be so that I can learn something.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, even if you're bad, like even if you're just starting to learn to dance, etc., that in and of itself is such a growth opportunity because you're entering a mind state where you are allowing yourself to flow even while you're fucking it up.
Yeah. I mean, it changes your perspective completely when you reframe fucking it up to like potential for learning.
Right, exactly.
I like to think about it with the words of just like being in your power. Like when you're in your power, like you're in your competency. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm in my zone. I'm like, I know where my shit's at. I know like what I'm capable of doing and everything. And when you're out of your power is when you're just like, like I just don't got it right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you can admit to yourself that you're not in your power, now you're in your power again.
That's right. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so true.
It's like I always think about that when I'm out in public, like talking to girls or something. I'm just like, just like I had this happen at like more than once. I'm just like, I'm just not feeling like the dude right now. You know what I mean? Like when you're feeling like the dude, you just feel like you can go talk to anyone, right?
Yeah.
Usually it has to do with like you're in the zone, like you got some wins under your belt, you're like out in a social setting where like you feel totally competent, you know what's going on and everything. But like sometimes like I'll meet girls in a place where like I'm just nobody, you know what I mean? But I feel that and I'm just like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it right now.
Yeah.
Boom. Like you admit to yourself that you're not all there and now you're all there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So weird. It's like, it's very yin yang again. You know what I mean? It's you're choosing what to focus on.
Yeah. Also, and also there's a level of acceptance and permission in stating the obvious and stating, I'm nervous right now.
Yeah.
Like for sure that's this, I mean, very similar with like performance. I mean,
yeah.
I'm never not nervous before going on stage, whether it's performing music or acting or doing comedy. There's always a level of like, I am nervous and I used to teach kids musical theater and they would always ask me, so do you ever get to a place where you're not nervous? And I'm like, no, you never do.
Yeah. Because then you're in a place of denial.
You should be concerned. If you're not nervous, that means there's something wrong. Either you're too confident or in your pride and it's just you're going to phone it in or it's not going to be connected in some way. You have to be nervous. You also have to give yourself permission to be nervous. Say that you're nervous. And also in the case of acting or performing, it's like recognize that the audience is there as a support network for you. That they want nothing more than for you to succeed. That they actually really love you. And they really want to be moved to a place that they haven't experienced before.
That's a real fun angle to play with comedy, especially.
Yeah.
Because in comedy, you kind of have like this like dance with the audience, like, are they my friend or my enemy?
Right. How do I win them back over? Yeah.
But stating the obvious is like, I haven't done any actual stand-up comedy, but I've written a lot of stand-up comedy.
Oh, good. Oh, we should fuck around. Know what I mean? We could do some stupid jokes.
Yeah.
With people.
No, I have a couple different acts that I would like to perform at some point, but that really is like the limiting factor for me. I feel is like the relationship to the audience.
Yeah,
because if you're saying something and it's like not working out, like the funniest thing that you could do is like say that.
Yeah, I mean the reality is like, and this is true, and people. I mean, it's true in my experience, and it's true. I think overall, like if a joke doesn't work, and I say, well, that didn't work. People laugh. That's like almost the biggest laugh that I'll get. Sometimes, hopefully not in a set, but occasionally, like for sure, that's happened quite a bit in my years in LA and whatnot. But that's a common thing, like admitting it. First of all, it's a way for the audience because they're already feeling awkward because they didn't laugh. Yeah. And so then if you make a joke like that, most of the time, not all the time, sometimes crowds are just shitty. To be honest, I mean, that's true. But
my joke was great. You guys are just shit.
I mean, and sometimes it goes like that. I mean, one of my very dear friends, Nicole Amy Schreiber, she just posted a thing on Instagram about it. But the point is, like, even if they don't laugh at your admitting that I thought that was really funny, you still are giving yourself permission to be in a state of it's okay.
And that's disarming.
Yeah.
In a good way too.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, this guy's so chill that he can like fuck up a joke and like still keep going and not care.
Right. Exactly.
It's like kind of feels the same way in relationships actually too.
Yeah.
Like if you can have a fumble, but then like not make a big deal about it and just keep on going. Like that feels really good in a relationship.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Especially as a man, just like, not getting hung up on stuff so much.
Yeah.
Seeing it, addressing it and everything, fully being present with it, but then being like, okay, it is what it was.
Yeah.
It is what it was.
It is what it was. And here we are. What's next?
I'm not great with relationships, so I can't really give you any advice past that. Or to anyone.
I'm doing pretty good right now. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Knock on my wife.
What kind of...
Don't knock on my wife. Stop knocking on my fucking wife. All right? Get out of here. Honey.
What kind of relationship would you give to a guy in their 30s that's single?
What kind of relationship would I give him to?
I feel like relationships with women in my 30s are going a little bit easier.
I mean, there's going to be issues in relationships. For me, I guess, it's in answer to your question, like what advice would I give to somebody in their 30s is like just be totally transparent and honest.
Oh yeah,
all the time.
Yeah,
and like
that's refreshing.
And when you're triggered, just admit that you're triggered.
Yeah,
and like set the expectations where they are. Like it's important. Gosh, I just had this great conversation with all these podcasts. All these learning things that I'm learning. Oh, okay. Yeah. It was Amy Batuski. I had this really great conversation with Amy Batuski that's worth listening to, where she goes through a whole list of like things that you want to talk about before you have sex with somebody.
Oh, wow.
Like, what's the context for the relationship? Like, is this a one night stand? Are we going to do this again? We're like, what's our level of commitment?
Yeah.
Are you clean, but are you clear?
Yeah.
Like in terms of your test results for STDs and that kind of thing, like open conversation about that. What are your aftercare expectations? Like, what are you looking for after, she's like, well, I want a phone call in the morning if we're not together and I want you to initiate. That's really important for me to feel safe and like grounded and heard, like, what do I like? What don't I like? You know what I mean? I think she gives a choking example, which that would freak me out completely and I could never do it. But anyway, she gives an example about that. Some people like that. Some people don't.
Yeah.
And there's safe ways to do that for sure. So to each their own. But I would say like, I was never very successful at being a player. I was always like a girlfriend. I always had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
The thing that I like finally realized with, with Christine is like, first of all, for me, unless it's like whatever, I'm on vacation and it is a one night stand situation, right? And the other person is cool with that, like, hey, let's have some fun tonight. I'll see you later. I'm going back to California. You're going back to Rhode Island. Because all girls live in Rhode Island that are one night stands. Everybody knows that. All 10 of them.
Or Australia.
Or Australia. Yeah, more likely. Like, just be super intentional. Like, this is what first of all, don't have sex with somebody that you wouldn't want to be in a relationship with.
That's where I'm at now.
Yeah. Don't.
Finally.
Yeah. Don't. Because you're automatically like, first of all, we don't have a very good context for sex and there's so much repressed and not open about it. And we don't recognize the sacredness of sex, even though that's where we all came from.
Yeah.
But also like you're mixing your energies and your fluids with someone. And there's way more going on there than we even realize.
Oh man.
When you do that. And so then all of those things are like weaving. And now you're on some level, you are bound to that person in a way. And it takes a long time to shake that off. And so, I would say like be super particular and very intentional about who you're with. Make a list of things that you actually want.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, the spectrum of like just energetic exchange has definitely like become more clear to me over the past year, especially. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, especially through like just living in this community where like I'm like contact dancing with like a bunch of different women or whatever, and like or cuddling with female friends or something, and it's like it doesn't mean that we're gonna like sleep together or whatever.
Which is such a beautiful thing.
It's amazing
that I haven't seen anywhere else.
I really haven't, and it's been one of the healthiest things for me because like touch is a love language for me, and I do like just from a homeostasis like of myself and knowing my body, like that's important for me to have that, even if I'm not in a relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, my standards for myself with where I'm at in my life before I would feel comfortable to sleep with a woman, and also who the woman is that I would be sleeping with, like my standards are just like outrageously high
Right.
for myself. And so to like be celibate or whatever for like an extended period of time, a number of months or whatever, and like not have any kind of like physical contact just because I'm not going to sleep with someone,
Yeah.
you know, is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like that's something that I actually want to explore more through the work that I'm doing, because I'm incorporating partner work into it. Through the knowledge that I've gained through like contact improv and martial arts together. Because I think that physical communication between people is super important to like understand like what is my intuition about where my standards are at for like if I'm attracted to someone physically. Like do I just like how they look, or do I actually have chemistry with them?
Right.
You know, like is this like a flirty like fun kind of attraction, or do I like literally want to have kids with this person right now?
Right.
You know? You know? And like
snap your fingers, baby. Look at that.
Because
look
like
what we did.
Because like
you just popped one out. I just touched you, and now you got a kid popping out of your vagina.
Because like
amazing.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Clearly.
The first time that I had like a really like sexy like contact dance with a woman, I was just like I just like threw myself at her. You know what I mean? And she was just like, "This is your first time ever having this kind of experience?" You know, it was like better than sex for me.
Yeah.
Because it was just so like timeless. I just felt like we were in this like vortex. You know what I mean? Since then, I've had like so many dances like that, experiences like that. And it's so important to like build, you know, context for like this language of physical communication with people.
Yeah.
You know, especially men to women. I feel like men and women are both so deprived of that.
Yeah.
Of like a healthy space to explore that.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel so fortunate to be in this community where we're able to do that. And to the point where like I have a hard time even communicating that to people outside of this community, because it's like unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so I'm glad we're talking about this. For me, I mean, I go to ecstatic dance and I do dance with people. I'm a little more like, I'm married. So like I'm guarded kind of a little bit in that way.
Yeah.
But then also it's like I just did a music video where with a friend who like we're doing contact dancing, and at times it's like I don't know, it's not like sexual, but like it's intimate and totally, it's beautiful. And it was a great experience. Like I'm so glad that I can share it, because it's like here I'm having this real experience that is intimate and it is physical and it is playing with sexual energy, but there's no sex about it and there's no weirdness about it. And it gives me like a permission, both of us kind of a permission to play in that world without making it super confusing. And
it allows for like a lot of clarity internally. I feel like for me to know like, oh, like this is my level of like connection with this person right now, and it's okay, and I can just enjoy it for what it is, instead of like not understanding what it is and therefore jumping to something that I know, which is just like
going for it.
Boom, we're naked already in my head, you know? And it's like that's not freedom at all. You know, that's being bound to a narrative that is just like very like, you know, one way or the other, you know?
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of like frustration, I think, especially for women with men.
Yeah.
Specifically, because it's just like, you don't know how to, like, we have no awareness of our sexual impulses, you know what I mean? But a lot of that comes back to just not really having awareness of our bodies.
Yeah.
Period.
And not being allowed to have awareness of our bodies.
Yeah.
And thinking that, what's the line? The heart is deceitful and wicked above all, or something?
Exactly. Yeah.
How's that line go?
The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked.
Yeah.
Who can know it? So it's also a challenge. Like, no one can understand that shit.
Yeah. Interesting. That's good. I feel like that's a great way to wrap things up, actually. So yeah, so I think I really applaud your work, and like I'm really excited to see what floor work invention you come up with. I'm really excited to see your flow state evolution and what that work looks like. Sign me up.
Cool. Thank you.
And it's been a great conversation. I ask this of all my podcast guests. For you, Andrew, what is sacred and what is insane?
I feel like what is sacred is presence and like the felt experience, you know, because that's like the most personal thing that you can, that's like your medicine to the world, really, you know, that's like something that is like deeply unique. And that's something that I strive to cultivate more and more for myself. And I like to surround myself with people that are cultivating that for themselves and like being very authentic and like exploring like what makes them them, not what just makes them acceptable or, you know, easy to get along with or whatever, you know. And what's insane?
Great answer, by the way. That was beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. What's insane is like not being vulnerable at all. Like, I mean, in a big way, the only reason why I'm now actually taking steps forward to create this, you know, floor work intensive that I'm like really passionate about is because I'm opening it up to be like looked at and evaluated and stuff by like my friends that are close to me is like the first layer of like of criticism and also like celebration, you know, like it's been both.
Yeah.
From friends that I've like that I respect their opinion, I respect their experience. I feel like we're in a kind of in the same sacred space of like exploring movement as a language of expression. And so yeah, I think that the insanity that I've experienced in the past few years has been refusing to step into that vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's so great. I mean, it also goes along with giving yourself permission and having permission to fail and like
to be seen,
not caring what they think and like recognizing so much of what people are going to,
and
how people are going to judge you as projection.
Insane is like being this little mad scientist just over here in your lab being like, I'm not going to show it to anyone until it's perfect.
Right.
It's like, that's insane.
It's insane and it'll never get done.
It'll never happen.
Because it'll never be perfect.
Yeah. And people don't want perfect either.
Yeah.
Like I see Instagram as kind of like it feels contrived and it feels fake because people are only showing like the finished product all the time.
Right.
And it's like it's hard to like create a space of vulnerability through that platform because of that.
Definitely.
It's like people are kind of playing this intimidation game.
Yeah.
And it feels insane.
Yeah. And then there's the whole thing with which I've talked about a lot increasingly on this show is false vulnerability, fake vulnerability, pretending, which doesn't really get you anywhere, you know?
Yeah. Thanks for being open about that.
Yeah. Nice. All right, great. Well, I think that wraps it up. I think we're good. Well, beautiful. Lunacy is a creation of myself, Geoff Eido, with podcast management and support by Kimberly Joy Voice. If you'd like to become part of our team and support this show, please go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. Much love, everybody. We'll see you next week.